Good day, people. We're here to have a brief discussion about some things that you can do on your own for yourself as far as your learning process is concerned, especially with respect to manual therapeutics, osteopathic manual therapy specifically, which is what I do. And we're just generally looking at the actual motor skills or the sensory motor skills and developing those and things, again, as I've already said, that you can do for yourself. So when looking through a bunch of literature and I tried to identify best practices or the strongest signals as far as things that people can do for themselves, what I came across is something that was put forth by, I believe the authors were Rebecca Luthwaite and Gabrielle Wolf. Now I may be saying those names incorrectly, but I believe Gabrielle Wolf is at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, aka UNLV. But again, I may be wrong about that specific location. But either way, I will post links to some of the papers that they put forth below the video. Now, what we're looking at is something that they have done and put together that they call the optimal theory of motor learning. So the optimal, the O, and they spell it all in capitals, but optimal is essentially an acronym for optimizing performance through intrinsic motivation and attention for learning. Okay. Now, what they've essentially seem to have done is looked at the strong signals in motor learning research and identified a few things, essentially three key factors or factors with influence. The first one being, or not necessarily the first one, but the first one I'll talk about is autonomy support, or the autonomy of the learner. So what has been found in varying research or varying data is that autonomy for somebody in learning is a very good thing. You don't really want to promote full autonomy, so somebody having absolute freedom of choice. You want to promote support for autonomy so that they have the opportunity to explore, but within boundaries, especially in the early stages. What that can look like is choices of order. All right, so if I provide demonstrations for 3 skills, you as the learner choose which order to practice them in, or an inconsistent order. So you practice 1, then 2, then 3, then 3, then 1, then 2, then 2, then 1, then 3, and you interleave it or you mix it up as you so choose, which often creates what could be considered a desirable difficulty because you're not doing it in a specified order, you're doing it out of order, so your memory seems to have to work a little bit more actively or but more accurately, and it seems to help learning in many situations. So that concept being contextual interference or interleaved practice, and I'm pretty positive that we've done videos about that. I've actually done some personal writing about it in looking things up. What I tend to do is, as I'm looking through research, I will often write a paper for myself as a methodology to consolidate information, and that's completely subjective. It's something that seems to work for me. So we've talked about briefly autonomy support, so choices that the learner gets to make. However, you don't want absolute full autonomy, you want essentially guided or restricted autonomy. The second characteristic within the optimal theory of motor learning is enhanced expectancies. Now, enhanced expectancies for learning can come in the form of essentially positive experiences or outcomes. So positive experiences could be positive feedback, they could be personal feelings of success, it could be successful outcomes as guided by the task, whatever it may be. Now, unless you're in a classroom setting, it's going to be hard to receive positive feedback from an instructor. It's not impossible, but it's more difficult because they're not necessarily there at the time that the success occurred or the time that the good performance occurred. So what you can do on your own, in your own practice, in your own skill development, is you can purposely reward yourself. So whatever you set on purpose as the standard of success or the standard of a good performance, when it's achieved, especially if you're on your own, you find some way to reward yourself. If you really like coffee, when you have a good performance, you have some coffee. Maybe it's a sip of coffee or a whole cup, whatever it might be. It could be 5 minutes of quiet time if that's rewarding for you. Whatever it is, what you do is you choose, again, the standard of success, and then whatever your reward is going to be. If you are working within a group, so yourself and some colleagues or yourself and some other students, You again have an agreed upon standard of success for the practice, whatever you're working on, whatever motor skill you're working on. When that standard has been achieved, then you agree upon what the reward for whoever's achieved it is. So if, again, I myself am practicing something with other practitioners, and the standard of success is achieved by me, whatever I set out as my reward, somebody else will provide me. That could be, 5 minutes to go and rest. It could be a snack, whatever it is. But what I'm doing at that point by providing a reward under circumstances of success is I'm giving myself the opportunity to code them together, right? So I have an understanding that I have had a successful performance and I'm rewarding it. One of the things that seems to become apparent when you are looking through information, when you're looking through research, is that you don't really want to acknowledge bad performance. What you aim to do is reward good performance and do nothing for performance that's anything other than good. So you don't want to punish bad performance. You don't even want to acknowledge bad performance. The person doing the performance is usually quite aware that they haven't succeeded, so you just leave it alone. They're aware, and you don't reinforce it in any way. So you don't want to reinforce with punishment. If you consistently focus on the bad performance, then it's entirely likely that the person learning will also focus on the bad performance. So all you want to do is highlight the good performance as an instructor and as an individual. So if you're the individual practicing, what you do is you go into your practice, you go into your learning stage, into your studying stage, with the express purpose of rewarding yourself for good performance. And those are some possible strategies for doing it for yourself. Like I said, it could be whenever you hit that standard of success, a sip of coffee, a slice of orange, whatever you deem your reward to be, a square of chocolate. It doesn't matter what the reward is insofar as it is rewarding, and you are rewarding successful performance and you're leaving all other performance alone. So there is no punishment, there is not necessarily a repeat, start from scratch. The only thing you acknowledge is good performance. Every other performance is left alone. That seems to be a pretty strong signal, whether looking at the optimal theory of motor learning or other motor learning or sensory motor learning information that I found. The third key factor seems to be an external focus of attention. So I've already done a video about external focus of attention. Essentially, in the post that I placed on my website, I titled it "Show Them What It Looks Like." So whatever the movement is, whatever the motor performance is, you don't necessarily want to tell somebody your right hand does this, your right wrist does this, your right thumb does this. You don't want to be having somebody focus on internal processes. What you want to say is you're going to use your right hand and you're going to take this object and you're going to move it from the right side of your body to your left side of your body, right? So essentially the object is going to go to the left side of your body. So if it's over there, I grab it, I put it over there. That seems to be very positive for improving motor learning, improving motor performance, that external focus of attention. That's a fairly straightforward one. We don't have to spend too much time talking about it. Aside from the fact that if you are practicing a new skill, what you want to do is understand the goal of the skill. With respect to manual therapeutics, let's just say it's shoulder flexion, right? So you want to understand that it's primarily the sagittal plane and the arm comes up from the front of the body, so the arm's not at the side of the body, the arm's in front of the body, comes straight up in a straight line in the sagittal plane towards the ear. Right, so you have varying frames of reference. However you want to describe that, the motion looks like this. So you as a student learning a manual therapeutic methodology, whether it's osteopathic manual therapy or any other, what you understand is there's a goal movement and you try to create that movement in the patient or in the willing participant. You don't say, I need my arm at this angle, then I need to do this. You say, I need to create shoulder flexion, right? And then other essentially concepts and keys can come into play. Don't be too far away from your patient. You don't want effort and load to be too far from one another because then it becomes arduous for the practitioner. And we've spoken about things like that with the concepts of patient positioning and relational motion. We've spoken about that in varying ways previously. So just as a general recap, the optimal theory of motor learning, the key factors that we can utilize for ourselves, whether it's in an instructional setting or when we're on our own, is autonomy support, right? So you make choices as an individual learning. Even if you are in charge of what those choices are, it would seem like you have full autonomy because there's nobody else around you to support you. But what you do is you bind them, or you create boundaries. You don't give yourself complete freedom of choice. Maybe you give yourself binary choice, A or B, or 1 or 2, whatever it might be. You create boundaries so that you don't get too far off into the weeds, right? So autonomy support, enhanced expectancies, right, which is essentially positive experiences or outcomes. So what you do, as we've talked about, is create reward structures for successful performance. You don't bother acknowledging any other performance, you just reward successful performance. And then an external frame of reference. So if in your initial instruction you were taught a motor skill that had an internal focus, you should feel this way, you should have your arm here, you should be doing this thing, you might want to see if you can shift that such that there's an external frame of reference, so the goal movement in the patient with respect to manual therapeutics. So those are that is an overview of the optimal theory of motor learning. Is it the only theory of motor learning? No, it's not. But it is one that seems to have done a very good job taking very strong signals from a broad variety of research and putting it into a fairly concise theory that is utilizing all those signals to help provide better outcomes for people in motor learning situations. There are quite a few studies that have been done. So this theory was put forth in about 2016, and it's 2018 now, so not particularly long ago. But what's already been shown is that if you use one of those 3 keys, so you use autonomy support in an experimental setting compared to a control group, the people engaged in the task show better motor learning, but better motor performance. If you use autonomy support and enhanced expectancies, it's an additive effect. And then if you add on external focus of attention, again, you get another additive effect. So these concepts seem to be useful if they can only be used individually, or depending on the situation, if you can only use one of them, it will improve motor learning. If you can use 2 of them, it will improve motor learning, again, even more than only one. And then if you can use all 3, it's ideal. There may be some situations where you can't use all of them, but what you get where you can use one or any combination of the 3 of these concepts, you get a benefit for your motor learning processes or your sensory motor learning processes. What you would be well advised to do as an individual is to build these concepts into your own practice, whether it is learning a new skill in a manual therapy or thinking about athletic skills, because it's been shown to have benefits across all motor learning domains. So again, just a general overview of the concept with some suggestions to be able to utilize on your own outside of an instructional setting.